Do you know, we were just talking off the radio, me and Leslie. It must nearly be a month since we last spoke because there was that strange week where I had to leave the show early because my wife had gone into labour. And then Leslie was away. And then on the week she was back, I was on paternity leave. So it must nearly be a month, Leslie.
It's been too long, Gareth, too long. But I was listening to Jude. Oh goodness, that sounded like a good time that you had together.
Oh, he's brilliant, isn't he?
He
And
is
I mean,
brilliant.
we've not asked you yet, but we were wondering if we could hire him again at some point because he mentioned about he's doing a podcast, and we thought, well, never mind a podcast, why not do a show?
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely phenomenal. I'm all in with that, Gareth. And congratulations, by the way, on becoming a dad again.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you could have warned me that it was this difficult.
I've only got two.
Oh, well, oh, in that case, then, well, you've got nothing to moan about then at all, have you?
Easy. Got
Easy
two hands,
peasy.
two kids.
But I guess yours are now at the age where the other challenges come in, don't they? Of them sort of in between children and teenagers and adults. That must be a tricky time.
Oh yeah, it doesn't ever change. You never stop thinking about your kids and what they need. And even though mine are in their 20s and starting their careers, yeah, it's great. Every season is great, but it's particularly tiring when they are tiny and need you to do literally everything for them.
I mean, we went out. So, me and Sam, we went out yesterday, and I just thought for a moment that basically all this human being does is sleeps, eats, and then sleeps again. That is absolutely it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an absolute blessing, and I would not change it for the world. But I was thinking, these early weeks and these months, that is basically all we do, isn't it?
That is all they do, and it is amazing, isn't it, that everything they need you are providing, and their security is totally in the fact that you will provide everything they need. I mean, they might panic every now and again that then the next milk's not going to come along, but it is amazing. But then the first smile, Gareth, come on, the first smile is totally worth it.
We sort of getting there at the moment. So I'm not sure if it's see, my concern is that it's not a smile, it's a smirk. And I'm there thinking, why is my 3 week old son already smirking in a sort of very arrogant way? Is this the start of things to come? Because the name itself is quite grand, but nobody likes a smirker at the end of the day.
You got exciting times ahead, Gareth.
I'm already see, so my children as they are now, we've got my daughter who I think she's the real emotional caring one. And then my son, he seems to be the one who likes to make people laugh. And he's always dancing, he's always wanting to do things to be the center of attention. I don't know where he gets it from. And then we've got my son, Gabriel. It's still too early to see, but for some reason, he seems to be the soothing one. So he's sleeping throughout the day, he's sleeping throughout the night. And I'm wondering if they're already taking their sort of like their places, their characters,
Yeah.
where we'll have one of those ones, one of those ones, and one of those ones. But it's such an amazing thing. It really is. And it's an emotional roller coaster. But enough about me and the Cottrell clan. You've just been to Israel.
That's right. Yeah, I was there last week, got back on Sunday. What an incredible privilege it was, Gareth, to go and spend a few days in Israel. And I was doing a tour as well as visiting some people that we know there. And both were amazing. It was both really amazing to meet Jews and Muslims and Christians who were all, everyone. Israel is important to everyone, and it's amazing. This is actually a very quite a small place. It's about the size of Wales, so it's actually very very small. That's not a derogatory statement, but just the physical space is not huge, but just incredible. It's amazing to be in a place that has such a huge history, and and as a Christian, to be there, to be in a place where you know Jesus was, and to go to various places where, you know, you've read stories in the Bible. I've read the Bible throughout most of my life, and I've read these stories most of my life, but to be in the physical places where these stories actually happened, was just amazing. Standing on the Mount of Olives and in the Garden of Gethsemane, just profoundly kind of emotional, actually, in that place where obviously this is the place that Jesus was the night he was arrested before he was then put to death, and then looking out from the Mount of Olives and the Garden of Gethsemane out towards Jerusalem, where Jesus, you know, was looking towards. But yeah, it was just amazing visiting the Garden Tomb and going to the Sea of Galilee and going to Peter's house, and yeah, lots of different places, including going down to the desert to stay in a Bedouin camp overnight, and
Wow.
going on a camel. That's quite the experience, Gareth.
Wow. So we speak with Chris from Moorlands College on Mondays, and he is an archaeologist. And every week on the show, we do talk about these artifacts which have been found in places like Israel and Jerusalem and all those kind of places. And it's really amazing, isn't it? Because you can read the Bible for a lifetime, and it almost becomes... It sort of almost becomes so much of how do I explain it? Where it takes a trip like you've done to actually for it to all sort of come together and to think actually this is a real person that we hear about in the Bible. It's real people, it's real lives, and the sites that they'd have seen, they probably haven't changed that much, really. So, like you said, on the Mount of Olives, you were looking down, you were looking up, you were looking everywhere. And those are the sites that these famous people in the Bible would have seen.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and what's interesting is they're still finding places. So most recently, they discovered in Magdala, where Mary Magdalene came from, a synagogue. And they found a coin from 29 AD. So it showed that this was the original synagogue that Jesus himself stood in, and you can see the actual mosaic on the floor. And it's just amazing that not only to be in a place that, you know, Jesus actually stood, because there's lots of places where we think this is the place, it's very likely to be the place, and etc. But this is the place where Jesus actually stood. But it's only just been discovered 2,000 years later, and you think how much more is there to discover that's underneath. It is amazing. And I loved, my favorite place to go was in Capernaum, where Jesus spent a lot of time, and where Peter lived, and Jesus spoke in the synagogue, and the synagogue's there. It's just amazing. But walking from Peter's house to the shore of the Lake of Galilee is like a minute's walk. It's like super close. And so when you talk about Peter going fishing, you just realize, oh, Peter's went from his house just down the little kind of path to the sea to go fishing. And so it just brings it to life. And it was such a peaceful place to be. I was loving that. My husband was sending me messages going, Liz Truss just stepped down as PM, and I'm like, the world is just, what's happening in the world? And then I'm sitting here by the Sea of Galilee, listening to the shore, like the lake lapping up on the shore. It's just such a peaceful place. And actually, it was very special. It's very special to be in a place where, you know, it's a place of history, but it's actually a place where Jesus himself started a movement that carries on today, of sharing the good news of the fact that God loves us and he wants to have a relationship with us, and he's pursuing us. And that's where it started, where Jesus brought that good news. And to be in that place was just really, it really sort of affected my faith, and just made me so thankful, Gareth, that good news that Jesus started to talk about and was being spread throughout Galilee and around Israel at the time is now being spread across England, you know, and around the world. And people today are still meeting Jesus. And one of my high points was we went on Sabbath, on the beginning of Shabbat. We went to, you're going to have to listen to this, we went to a Ethiopian Jewish believing congregation. It was mad. It was so cool. Tell you, they know how to party. And it was just, I was sitting there on Friday night going, I'm sitting in Israel, the place where Jesus himself walked, surrounded by these Ethiopian Jewish believers who love Jesus, who were partying the night away. It was just amazing.
Because I guess we can get a bit sort of like imagining that Christianity in the UK is how it is everywhere. And, you know, this is not meant to sound critical at all, but if you take other cultures, like we've got a lot of African friends, and they absolutely, you know, when they come to our church service, you can tell that they're there to worship. They're not there because they feel like they need to tick that box. And you hear them sort of saying things like during the sermon, like, amen, and stuff. And it's a shame, really, that us Brits, we can be so, oh no, we can't. We
so
can't
constrained.
enjoy this too much. That's it, isn't it? Because it's a thing like, you know, this is a joyous message. This is a message of hope. I mean, there's no more important message than the one that Jesus Christ brought.
Absolutely.
And our lives have been changed by it. Billions of lives have been changed by it. But sometimes we go to church or we talk about our faith to other people. And it's like, yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah. And yeah, that's good. Yeah. Go to church and that's it. Whereas other cultures and countries, like you said, they're jumping for joy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it's so clearly obvious to all that's in their presence that they are joyful and that Jesus has changed them. And I think, you know, I love the fact that we have different cultures and we have different, you know, different ways to approach because the world is full of people that are all different. That's an obvious statement, I know. And it talks in the Bible about at the end of time, every tribe, tongue, and nation will join together in worship, worshipping Jesus. I love that picture. You kind of get a glimpse of it when you go to something like an Ethiopian community or a church, you know, one of the, you know, an African Nigerian church or but also, you know, a very English church, you know, actually much as, you know, we may be a bit more constrained and it's maybe harder to detect the joy at times. There's something beautiful about the fact that we're all very different and every expression is beautiful to God. I love that. And I love the fact that we're not just one type of people. We are, you know, 1,000 types of people, cultures, nations, tribes, who can worship God together. And Jesus, but Jesus is our focus. That's the thing it's all about Jesus. It's not about us. It's all about Jesus. But yeah, I must admit, it filled me with such kind of happiness just to be with those Ethiopians.
I just love the fact that when it says that every person in every nation, you'll see them in a massive crowd and you'll be able to know which the Brits are and which the Brits aren't. I love the fact that you'll see all the other ones like hands in the air and then us Brits will be there going, this is nice, isn't it? This, yeah. What a good do.
What good do? Any cup of tea anywhere?
Yeah. Oh, they've even brought quiche. Wonderful.
Do you know, I actually ate quiche in Jerusalem.
I can't stand quiche. I'm sorry, but there's just...
I was so happy.
Quiche is the most dull and cold and sloppy thing known to man. It's horrible. And you can criticize me however you want and say that only a true Christian eats quiche. Well, I'm not going to take that. Quiche should be wiped off the earth, and I hope in heaven there is no quiche. Anyway, if you would like to find out more about Leslie and Agapé UK, because this is an organisation who is working flat out at the moment to bring this hope of Jesus Christ to the UK and to help people to share it as well, because we don't want to be boring Christians, do we? You know, maybe you're not a Christian at all, and you're actually hearing this thinking, they are all a bit boring, aren't they? Well, they're not all. Some of them are, but then again, some non-Christians are also very boring. But if you want to go to the website, it is agape.org.uk, and there's loads of resources up there just to start conversations and to, you know, take life And to think, how do we put a Christian feel into this and a Christian thinking into our everyday life? So head over to the website there on all the socials. In fact, you'll see this morning's video that we tag them in, agape.org.uk. And Leslie, great to have you back.
Good to be back, Gareth.
We didn't talk much about the new Prime Minister, but, you know, he'll have changed again next week. So we can just pick up where we left off, I suppose. You have a great week, won't you?
Take care.
And it is